Welcome, everyone, to the fifth in our series, Seminar on Self. I'm yours truly, Tristan McGaugh, Philosopher at Large. Last time we considered the obstacles of self-transformation. This time we're going to consider techniques for self-transformation. Now, just to recap, last time what we were talking about are four main sets of obstacles. We're talking about sanctions, which are unquestioned commandments to either do something or not to do something. Opinions, which are handed down fixed beliefs. Passions, which are deeply grooved channels of affects, feelings, particularly of desires. And then addictions, which are habitual urges to act in some fashion or another. Now, all four of our obstacles, as we were talking about, are ways of limiting one's perspectival self. Now, remember, there were the 10 dimensions I referenced, and the first was your bodily or living self, and that's obviously your 10 senses. That is your 5 active senses of locomotion, manipulation, communication through speech, as well as procreation and elimination. And then, of course, you have your passive senses, which are sight, sound, etc. But what we were talking about, all four obstacles are ways that this perspectival self becomes limited to observing everything from a frozen point of view, that is a rigid set of window frames, offering the vista that is merely a section, often a fictional section, a fraction of the whole, and beholding the things of that world according to the predisposition that one might have. Whether it's a pre-baked opinion of the mind, a compelling passion of the heart, a nagging addiction of the body, or a dictatorial and domineering sanction of the will. In seminar number 2, we referred to this entire set of obstacles as persistent ignorance. Remember, that's the second type of ignorance, the first type being primal ignorance, that is the central sensibility that we all have as being a dualistic, self-centered, other world confronting entity. All right, that's your primordial or primal ignorance, avidya in Sanskrit. Persistent ignorance is the set of obstacles that we really create in our own daily living. Now, previously I referred to these as the bonds of cis formation. They're that kind of persistent ignorance that shows in terms of the enfeeblement of will, the enchantment of the mind, the estrangement of your heart or love, and enslavement of your actions, your deeds, and even the way your senses, your passive senses work in the world. Together, these persistently ignorant malformations of experience are referred to as expectants, wherein the framework of one's opinions, sanctions, passions, and addictions predetermine the mindset from where the perspectival self views the external world as well as the internal one. These dire formations prevent an open perspective that attunes itself to the realities of one's life world as well as one's interior world of the ever-evolving psyche. Rather than seeing things, people, and events as they really are, we tend to see them as we expect them to appear, according to our dogmas, desires, urges, and commandments. We need to clear away this psychal debris. Now, some may think that reality will be passable, at least, if the rest of the world would just learn to live as we expect it should. However, unless you're behind the master control of the cosmos, there's little chance of getting the rest of reality to conform to your predispositions. Tangible reality has a way of forever resisting your intangible predispositions. Reality may not correspond to your opinion of how it should be. And reality can surely thwart your desires, frustrate your will, and even break your leg. To the point. It appears that reality resists your inner dispositions with a regularity that reminds one of Newton's third law. When two objects interact, they apply forces to each other of equal magnitude in the opposite direction. In other words, they resist each other. Much like when you insert yourself into the world and it resists. Further, the universe doesn't much care about your frozen perspective of the world. To it, your perspective is of no help or hindrance to it whatsoever. The universe is indifferent to your queer, gelid, peculiar point of view. It takes it and you in its ontological stride of being, absorbing it as a part of its play of existence, or what in Hindu philosophy is called lila. However, since you have a self and a psyche, you should care that your perspective is limited and frozen. It is your greatest obstacle to self-transformation and the attainment of happiness, which, after all, ultimately is our final goal. In short, forget about the events of the world and whether they are positive helps or negative hindrances to you. None of that really matters. Certainly not if you created a calcified perspective of the world. Then you become your own worst obstacle to self-transformation for the better. Changing a frozen perspective with set opinions, sanctions, passions, and addictions is difficult for each of us, which is why Siddhartha Buddha encouraged us all with these words. To conquer oneself is a greater feat than to conquer another. What we find is that any given worldly event and one's perspective on that event are two entirely different things. However, of the two, one's perspective has the greater impact on how you think, feel, decide, and act, and thereby create your own internal state of psychic affairs. The event, it turns out upon analysis, is merely the set of circumstances your perspective plays out in as Leela. So, let's use your perspective as the playful pivot point from which to transform yourself. Ask yourself, if you free that frozen perspective with its fixed opinions, sanctions, passions, and addictions, then can you use your psyche's liberated energy to generate an opportunity for transformation and growth? Of course you can. That's the secret of self-transformation. Comparable to the splitting of the atom. When the mental atoms of sanctions, opinions, passions, and addictions are split apart under the laser beam of analytic consciousness, their binding psychic energy becomes available for conversion into another mental formation, a transformation, into another beneficial state of consciousness, if you direct it that way. So, what might be a good technique? by which a person can make these changes of consciousness in their life? Well, to begin with, since our everyday life doesn't happen all at once, but is experienced from one micro moment to the next, where the transition from past through the present to the future is umbrellaed by the eternal now. An appropriate technique must utilize that hidden momentum that is the essence of conscious reality and the advancing self. To illustrate, take for example, a day in one's own life. You don't wake up and see the entire day like a painting on a wall, done, finished, complete, viewed aloft as a spectator, as a distant observer, looking at an artistically done deal. Not the way it happens. You live your life from the inside out. You move from micro moment to micro moment. You have a smooth transition. It's a synechy. It's a continuity. There's no break whatsoever until you call yourself to attention, and then all of a sudden, state of consciousness fulminates. It arises, it abides, it ceases, it revealed itself for a while, and then it concealed itself the rest of the time. No, rather you wake up and live your day over an unbroken span of many, many momentary events appearing as scenes, some stretched into memorable occasions, most left to dissolve in the depths of subliminal consciousness. Furthermore, though you may observe certain external and internal events as a spectator, there's no doubt in your experiential mind that you're living from the inside out, so to speak, in your personal life world. But whether you are conscious or not of your mental states, as you perspectivize the world in experience, these states all serve as internal causes to your self-generated psychological effects. Consciously created causation, that is self-transformation, is the best route for generating the causes that will ensure the fruits of self-transformation, which, as we pointed out several times in the past, is an enlightening mind, an endearing heart, an empowering will, and an emancipating life, all which lead to eudaimonia, which is happiness. Sages have found, as they've guided their students over the ages, that the best steps for attaining these liberating states of conscious being are those that happen in the micro moment, where the change from past to future is being formed. Transformation, like a day in your life, is not experienced all at once, but as ongoing conversions of energy unlocked from the secret depths of the micro moment. The way to make permanent change is to make that change happen over and over again through a series of micro-transformations that cause enduring patterns of eudaimonia, which become more fundamental and galvanizing in your life than the old fixations of a frozen perspective consisting of constraining addictions, passions, opinions, and sanctions. But first, you have to neutralize and release the trapped psychic energy. The best way to make these micro changes through neutralizing the obstacle is to follow the Tibetan sage Tilopa's 6 words of advice. I have found that in so doing, it's an effective means. It's a way to leverage the pivotal moment to release oneself from a frozen perspective, allowing consciousness to fully settle into its fundamental nature of intuition, which will spontaneously point you in the direction of virtue, wisdom, bliss, and power. By resting in the natural state of consciousness, it will lead by intuition. Let's take a look for a moment at the 6 words of advice from Tilopa, a Tibetan sage, a master of meditation, and a yogi of cosmic consciousness. Now, last time, in step 1, you reflected on what obstacles shaped your perspective, and perhaps you made some notes so you'd know what you'd like to transform. Okay. Over and again now, whenever one of these obstacles arises in your daily life, use in real time Tilopa's 6-point technique to dismantle the frozen perspective of expectance and its enfeeblement of will, enchantment of mind, estrangement of love, and enslavement of life. And so these are his 6 points of mastery. Number 1, don't recall. Let go of what has passed. Number 2, don't imagine. Let go of what may come. Number 3, don't think. Let go of what is happening now. 4, don't examine. Let go of trying to figure anything out. 5, don't control. Let go of trying to make anything happen. 6, rest. Relax body and mind completely in silent consciousness right now. The obstacle that arose has disappeared. In the next moment, you have complete freedom to fly anywhere in the infinite sky of awareness. Go where you want. The obstacle has been left behind. With the world now wide open, why fly back into its cage? Next time, we're going to speak about the means of self-evolution, namely the faculties of self-transformation. So, until then, behave yourself if you must. Be good whenever you can. But above all else, be yourself.